The iconic studio at 30 Rockefeller Plaza crackled with an electric anticipation as the live audience awaited the cold open of that night's new Saturday Night Live episode. After the customary political lampooning to kick things off, the transitional music segued to the evening's headline event, the hot-blooded Canadian heartthrob Ryan Gosling making his eagerly awaited return as guest host. As the cheers and catcalls reached a fever pitch, Gosling's trademark smoldering intensity materialized from the wings like a panther entering its cage. Clad in an exquisitely tailored tuxedo that seemed engineered to set viewers' pulses racing, the musky embodiment of scintillating masculinity soaked up the raucous adulation with a cocksure grin. "What's up, New York?" he bellowed over the roaring ovation, whipping off his jacket with one deft motion to expose chiseled biceps straining against the crisp white shirt fabric. "Man, you have no idea how pumped I am to be back on this legendary Studio 8H stage hosting SNL again." With a subtle wink, Gosling turned his magnetic gaze outward as if basking in the hotspots of cameras capturing his every seductive move in high-definition glamour. The actor clearly understood the potent cocktail of raw charisma and brooding mystique that had propelled him into the Hollywood firmament as a certified leading man in global obsession. He opened his arms in an all-encompassing gesture of gratitude to the roaring live audience. "It's a true honor to be part of this storied television institution once more. Although I can't help but notice they seem to have gotten a bit loose with their admission standards as of late." A mischievous glint flashed across Gosling's steely eyes as he cocked his head quizzically towards the darkened wings offstage left. "Why, unless I'm sorely mistaken, it appears the showrunners have allowed a shameless, ill-bred jackass to wander onto this sacred television ground where he so clearly doesn't belong." The focused intensity of Gosling's raptor-like glare seemed to penetrate the shadowy set wings, homing in on an increasingly visible, and visibly uncomfortable, figure attempting to slink his way onto the corner of the SNL stage. As a harsh solitary spotlight refocused onto the unfolding scene, none other than Prince Harry emerged from the darkness in a rumpled, sweat-stained suit with hands shoved deep into his pockets. The disgraced Duke of Sussex seemed to shrink several inches under the searing wattage boring down upon his sheepishly wavering countenance. He managed an anxious half-wave to a befuddled portion of the audience who couldn't quite compute the bizarre intrusion. Provoking the target. "Well, I'll be goddamned, the wayward prince himself." Gosling sneered in disgust, openly revolted at the sight of Harry failing so miserably to blend into the background as intended. Prince Harridan gracing us with his singularly unwelcome presence on a hallowed television stage he stopped being worthy of years ago. The actor let the puzzled titters subside before truly letting the disgraced royal have it with both sneering barrels. "News flash for you, Harry, your tarnished reputation for humiliating your family precedes you at this point. So why don't you stop with the skulking and bring that rutted rump over here so I can properly identify you for the shameless parasite you've become." Harry seemed to wither and contemplate bolting before Gosling barked an authoritative finger snap driving him forward onto the unforgiving spotlight with trembling steps. "That's it, let's get that bloated barnacle carcass front and center. Maybe if I chasten you with the truth to your face, it'll finally sink into that dense Windsor skull how much you've desecrated your own ancestral bloodline." With the disgraced prince now firmly centered in the blinding downpour of hot television lights, the captor turned to his helpless prey with raptor-like intensity. Gosling prowled in a slow, assessing circle around Harry while audibly sucking air through his clenched teeth in mocking disapproval. "I've got to hand it to you, Windsor, it takes a very particular breed of arrogant self-delusion to imagine you'd be a welcome presence among the luminaries routinely invited onto this storied Studio 8H stage." Stopping directly in front of Harry to glower mere inches from his rapidly paling face, Gosling brayed a sulphuric guffaw of caustic derision. The roiling heat of his whiskey-laced breath seemed to actively wilt the already wilting subject. "What, you thought your royal eminence would stroll right out to be draped in cheap American applause simply by associating with actual talented entertainers delivering worthwhile cultural contributions?" The actor wheeled away in grandiose disgust, shaking his head in bitter bewilderment as Harry stared woodenly ahead with a dumbstruck rictus. Gosling slashed the air with a dismissive snarl at his stunned television audience. "Well, permission goddamn denied, you repugnant little sidekick giggling for his delusional wife." This hallowed television institution is reserved for accomplished professionals who've done more than just pontificate and pirouette for whatever seedy crew is cutting their debased paycheck. The unchecked spray of vitriol landed with spit-flecked violence across Harry's reddening features. Yet the breathtaking indignity had only just begun its full frontal assault on the hapless former royal's final threads of dignity. The deluge of insults. Rearing up to his full towering height for maximal domination, the Canadian heavyweight snorted derisively with upturned lip while fully unleashing the pent fury clearly building towards this fateful crescendo. Just exactly what right do you imagine entitles your blighted presence on this vaunted comedic platform? Gosling roared with righteous indignation. After so willfully besmirching your own duty-sworn family lineage with your wife's clueless, attention-starved bloviations, you've created your own custom-branded court of public ridicule. The vicious barrage of humiliation sliced through the shell-shocked silence like shards of shrapnel, leaving raw welts on the disgraced prince's custard-thick pride. I mean honestly, how much of your ancestral family's sterling reputation did you feel you simply had to sully by renouncing your royal lineage? Gosling railed, jaws tensed and veins pulsing in his taut neck. Were those lavish castle allowances and a lifetime of tax-free living not enough to keep financing your parade of thirsty PR stunts and tawdry galas across the pond? He wheeled towards the pin-drop silence of the live audience for emphasis, stabbing a damning finger into Harry's hangdog direction. Apparently not, since he follows his mealy-mouthed trailer dog of a wife around like a sad canine, happy to wag his tongue whenever she throws him a scrap of attention. The raucous roar of guffaws and cheers enveloped Studio 8H in a deafening swell, celebrating the frenzied star's unbridled takedown in full throat. Harry could only gape in mortified dismay as Gosling's laser-focused rampage reached ever-escalating heights of scorn. Did no one in that vaunted dynasty have the foresight to teach you a single lesson about respecting the institutional monarchy you wholeheartedly betrayed? The actor raged, chest heaving from the force of his outrage. Or did your great-grandmother's edicts about royal decorum all get cancelled out by your shrill American bride's endless ability to screech into the nearest camera lens? As certain audience members began trading murmurs of shock over such brutal public condemnation, Gosling seemed to only further revel in lacerating his target. Oh, what's wrong, Harry? Did the sour truth hit a little too close to your gutless, sellout core this evening? Go ahead and try formulating a response if you can pry your trembling lips apart from Meghan's leeching grasp for even a split second. The hammer drops. Taking a moment to collect himself with an arrogant tug at straightening his tuxedo lapels, Gosling appraised the bristling audience with a knowing grin. It was clear the superstar intended to fully savor